Recording in progress.
Good evening, everybody. It being 7:01 and a quorum present, I'm going to call this meeting of the Planning Board to order. This meeting is being held both in person and via remote. Those who wish to participate remotely can get the information off of the town's website. Those attending in person are here tonight in the Great Hall at Town Hall, as opposed to our normal location in the 1820 courtroom. Tonight, we're going to begin with an administrative matter, the reorganization of the planning board. This is something that we do every year following town election. So at this point, I'm going to start with the officers of the planning board. We'll call for nominations. All you need is a nomination. No second is required. We'll begin with the chair. Do I have nominations for chair?
Nominate Steve Bulletin for chair.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. Any other nominations? Hearing none, I will call for a vote. We're all present here, so show of hands, all in favor? It is unanimous, and I thank you all. Next, nominations for vice chair. I will nominate Mr. Grandy to remain as vice chair. Are there any other nominations? Seeing none, I will call for a vote. All in favor? Also unanimous. Mr. Donaldson, you're currently serving as secretary, so we'll call for nominations for secretary. I will nominate Mr. Donaldson to remain as secretary. Anyone else? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor? Okay. It is unanimous. Do we have any other pro tem? Mr. Bennett is serving as the secretary pro tem. Mr. Bennett, do you wish to continue in that position? I'll nominate Mr. Bennett. Any other nominations? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor? It is unanimous. At this point, we can also go forward through with our liaison assignments, and I guess the shortest way to do that, instead of going through each, is everyone has a liaison assignment. Are there any board members who wish to change their liaison assignments, or is everyone comfortable with their current liaison assignment? I think everyone is comfortable with their liaison assignments, so at this point, I will make a motion that all liaison assignments be reaffirmed for the next year. I'll take a second on that one.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor? That is also unanimous. So everyone will remain in their current positions and assignments. And thank you for being so efficient, everyone. Moving next to our administrative notes, we have no minutes for approval this evening. We do have covenants, plans, and releases. The covenants and plans we have is PB 654, Sheridan Home Builders, Inc. This is a lot release. I am not going to read through all of them. We have them all. We know the lots. So these are previously approved lots for building that we have voted on. So this is to release the next set of lots for construction. Any questions from members of the board? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to release the lots.
I have a motion to release the lots. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? It is unanimous. Then we have Form A plan, A4918, 243 Sandwich Street, the Butterfield Family Living Trust. That is map 025, lot 41, and that's to create 2 lots. Any questions or discussions from the board? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to endorse.
I have a motion to endorse. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have 2 seconds. Mr. Mann guessed it in seconds. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? It is unanimous. There are minutes?
Yes.
I apologize. We do have minutes.
Wednesday, May 13th.
Wednesday meeting. They are not on our agenda, however.
They're in the packet.
They're in our packet, but they're not on our agenda.
It says approval of minutes, but there's
It
nothing.
does not identify. We do have, but we don't have them listed on the agenda, so why don't we just carry those over to the next agenda? Okay. Are there any announcements from members of the board, public interest? Seeing none, I'm going to move into our agenda for this evening. So we're going to start with the site plan review continued for Redbrook Use Area 17, the multifamily building. And the way we're going to do this is the same way we did last time. We're going to have the presentation by the applicant. Then we're going to open it up to public comment. Then we'll go on to use area 18, do the presentation, open that up to public comment. Then we'll close public comment and it'll all come back to the board.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, fellow board members and staff. My name is Dan Gorsker, Vice President of Development for the 80 Makepeace Company. We are back here before the board this evening for the continued review of use area 17 pursuant to section 20572 of the zoning bylaw and the previously approved master plan special permit. As discussed at the prior meeting, Redbrook was approved to be developed in phases through individual use area plans. This application has been submitted for consistency with the Trevor bylaw and the approved master plan special permit. Use area 17 is located in the village mixed use area where multifamily housing is an allowed use. The proposed plan includes one two-story residential building and requires no waivers. Before we get further into details, we want to acknowledge the comments and feedback that we've received from the town and from residents. We understand why people care deeply about Redbrook. We do as well. The passion surrounding these areas reflects the strength of the community that has created and its values residents place on the village center, amenities, and overall Redbrook. From the beginning, Redbrook was envisioned to have a complete village, a place with different housing types, residents of different ages and incomes, walkability, gathering spaces, and shared amenities. Redbrook, and specifically the village center, was never intended to be frozen in time. It was planned to evolve as the community continued to grow. Multifamily housing was always contemplated and allowed in the village mixed-use area, and this location allows the residents of this new multifamily to be integrated into the heart of the community with access to all the same amenities and experiences that make Redbrook special. We also want to clarify a few important items. The playground amenity is not being eliminated. It's simply being relocated into another active community area where it has complementary uses around it. Parking has been carefully planned and exceeds zoning requirements. The project uses existing infrastructure efficiently and continues the thoughtful evolution of Redbrook. When people ask why here, the answer goes back to the original vision of Redbrook, creating a true village with a mix of housing types. Again, residents of different ages and incomes, walkabilities, amenities, and shared community spaces. This location within the village mixed-use area is consistent with Trevor principles, where multifamily has and always was contemplated as part of an integrated community. Locating these homes near recreation, restaurants, trails, gathering spaces, and existing infrastructure supports the goal of bringing residents together rather than separating them. This plan continues the thoughtful evolution of Redbrook Village Center while fulfilling a long-standing commitment in maintaining the vision of one connected community. One of the comments we heard clearly at the last meeting was about parking, so we wanted to spend some time addressing that. We heard the comments regarding parking and understand how important access is to the village center and the amenities residents enjoy. While Redbrook was intentionally designed as a walkable village with shared amenities and pedestrian connections, we also recognize that parking is an important part of making those spaces successful. For that reason, this plan includes 76 parking spaces, where 47 are required, exceeding the zoning requirement, while maintaining additional nearby parking resources throughout the village center. Combined with relocating the playground into another active recreation area, we believe this plan continues to support convenient access while advancing the original mixed-use village vision. This slide here is a repeat from last time, except we just have updated where the parking and just specifically, there we go. Specifically, the parking changes, actually, you know what, it's easier to come back down to here, I think. The parking changes include a variety of things. One, we have added 4 total parallel parking, not 4, 6, sorry, 3, 5. 5 parallel parking spaces on Sunflower Way, which mimics the existing parking already there. The head-in parking that we showed on Wareham Road, due to concerns about safety and talking to the engineering department, we have made those also parallel on-street parking spaces. By reconfiguring some of the islands and the spaces in here, we actually did pick up 2 more spaces in the original parking lot. But then also we added a standalone 16-car parking lot, which comes off of Green Sideways South. Parking, as time goes on and things evolve even further in here, parking is more of a challenge too. There's also another 8 to 10 spaces that could fit in that wooded area right there. This is just the isometric view that was just updated to show that original parking, but just this helps shows the massing and the scale of the building as it relates to the surrounding area. Again, same as last time, no changes here, just these are renderings and elevations of the building. This is showing, so the playground, what we're proposing, we'll relocate it to Market Square. The existing playground has been a valued amenity within Red Brook, and maintaining that experience for residents and families has been an important part of the plan. As the community has grown, we have an opportunity to relocate and integrate the playground into a more complete recreation area where activities are naturally clustered together. The new location places the playground near other active community amenities, including pickleball, the YMCA, the coffee shop / bakery, and the community mail house, creating a place where families and residents can gather and enjoy multiple amenities in one location. This area also provides opportunities for additional seating, natural vegetation, and shade, creating a comfortable and inviting community space for all ages. This next image is just showing the aerial view. You guys can see here, here's the mail house and the bakery building. There's the already existing outdoor gathering space. There's the existing pickleball courts. The YMCA facility is just off the page right here. And then this is an approximate footprint. So the intent would be to save a buffer between the existing patio, create 1 or 2 entry points from that patio into the playground. We'll do our best to save some trees within the playground. It does become difficult only because there's certain fall zones and stuff that has to be unwarranted, but the existing vegetation around it itself will help with some shading aspects that I know were concerns of others with the other location. This is the same slide as last time, just an update on all the things affordable. If you have any questions, I can answer those on that one. And then with that, I would just see if there's any other questions or comments.
Okay, so at this point, I'm going to continue public comment from last time. I'm going to ask public first to raise their hands, just to be talking here. This is just about use area 17. I have an opportunity for use area 18. So again, I'd like you to raise your hand when recognized, come to the podium, identify yourself by your name and where you live. You don't have to give your specific address if you don't want to. That's perfectly fine. Just let us know if you're in Red Brook, if you're in Plymouth, if you're not in Plymouth. We follow the published comment procedure, so that's 3 minutes per person. If you need additional time, ask, and it'll be up to the board to decide if they want to extend an additional 2 minutes. All questions and comments are to be addressed to the board, not to the applicant. We'll take notes. Our staff is taking notes as well, and we'll ask the questions ultimately when public comment gets closed. That way we can aggregate all the questions, and if there are multiple questions that are similar, we can just ask it once. When public comment is closed, the board then refers the questions to the applicant. Once public comment is closed, that's the end of public participation. So I want everyone to understand that's a legal procedure that we have to follow. That is the law as to how it has to go. We will respect your right to speak. We ask that you respect the rights of others. Interrupting the proceedings, speaking over someone, or other disturbance is not acceptable. We have never had to do so, but if someone refuses to abide by our public comment policy, they may be asked or compelled to leave. I'm sure that will not be necessary. Couple of items of guidance for those who wish to speak, just so people understand what it is we're considering tonight. This board cannot revisit the terms of the existing permit. This permit was granted back in 2008, so the time for us to consider the terms of the permit is long gone. It is simply not within our ability. We can't enforce any promises that aren't in the permits, the MOUs, or any subsequent planning board decision. I know that people have said in the past, and I understand that they have had different discussions with the developers or with realtors, et cetera, and I am sympathetic to that, but that is outside the scope of our purview. Again, we are a municipal body. Our actions are governed by state law and town bylaws. We don't get to choose what we get involved with. We are mandated by law as to what we can do. We cannot require the applicant to do anything off of its property. Those are called linkage fees. They're often referred to in this town as impact fees, but whatever they're referred to as, they are by state law illegal. We also can't require that the state revisit any permits or authorizations it has issued. And I know that a number of these were issued many, many years ago, back in 2008 or even earlier when this was first being applied. And things do change over time. It's been a long time. However, we don't have that authority. If there's any issue that goes with those permits, that has to go back to the state. Just finally, we've read everything submitted to us. That means from the applicant, town staff, and from the residents. And we have heard what was said at the last meeting, and we have taken those things into consideration. We are not telling you what to say. You are free to speak, but understand that we have heard these things and we are paying attention to them. So consider that when making your public comment. And with that, I will open the floor. Is there anyone in the room who wishes to be heard? We'll start with the two of you.
Hello, I'm Elizabeth Driscoll. This is my husband, Douglas Lovell. We live at 9 River Birch Way, which is the property that is closest to the mail house and to the proposed playground area. And I heard you saying earlier about real estate agents have told us all sorts of things. Our real estate agent told us that no building would happen in any of those woods. And obviously the mail house went up, all of those others. And now the playground is continuing to be building that area out further. I have not felt like this company has dealt with us above board at any point along the way. And that's frustrating. It's making us significantly consider whether or not we want to leave the community. So
I want to ask the board if they know, my name is Douglas Lovell, 9 River Birch Way. Thank you for being here. If they know the number of people that use the playground on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis, if there's any kind of noise containment. We are right next to the pickleball courts. We've asked AD Makepeace to do some kind of abatement process that goes on in many different states and many different municipalities. They've said no. Is the area where the new building is going that's going to displace the playground is because that's already zoned for electrical, plumbing, mechanical? Would it cost AD Makepeace more to site the building in a different area? And I want to ask each of you individually, if you moved into a house and the realtor, which we have on camera, video saying nothing will be built here, and yet a mail house, a coffee shop, and now a playground is built there, wouldn't you feel a little bit betrayed by your realtor and by your developer? So I just want you to sit with that and think about that and how it affects residents. We have all kinds of stuff happening at all hours of the night. Kids want to rev their cars. They want to do donuts, whatever it is. We live with that. I understand. I was a teenager once. But constant noise. We have 3 kids. I love kids. I work at a school in Boston, pre-K through 8. I think it's because AD Makepeace has not come up with another alternative solution. They're just saying, we'll just put it there because it's easier and more cost effective for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Randy Rahal, 1 Olive Street in Red Brook. Stephen and the board, thank you for hearing us. I talk to you as a voice of reason. I have no problem with the concept, which should have been done a long time ago, of the housing. We need it. It's a good thing, and we should have it. Should have had it a long time ago. My only issue, and it's a small issue, is the dovetailing and the horseshoeing of 19 units in that spot. On River Runway, they're building now. The site work is going in, the water, the sewers, all that site work is being done as we speak. The only real issue with this unit going there is once it's in, it's going to preclude anything else, really, of being built in there. It's one and done. And my feeling is AD Makepeace will be gone. I don't know that for sure, but once it's in, it's in. You can't undo it. We could use a general store, a small general store. I made the mistake of saying 7-Eleven. Not a good idea. But a small general store, which we need desperately, and perhaps something else. Those would fit in there, and it adds to that whole community area, to that composite of people living in that area. By putting more housing in there really doesn't do anything except add to whatever congestion. And it's only 19 doors. It's not a lot. The point I'm making is, once it's in, it's in. I have been volunteering in Red Brook since the day I moved in there 8 years ago. In the garden, in the memory garden, in the daffodils. I am fully engaged in this community. We moved here. I was going to go move into Pine Hills. Del Webb, I know who Del Webb is. He had a house, he wanted me to move. I liked I liked what Red Brook had to offer. I knew nothing about Red Brook or Pine Hills. I liked what it offered. And it just seems we continue to get away from that. Even the original aesthetics of what it was has been shown. They've lost that. The mail facility, it looks like a prefab metal building. You couldn't get a cheaper building to go up. We need it, but the whole concept of money and what it's costing AD Makepeace has now become an issue. And frankly, over the last 7-8 years that I've lived here, the real estate's gone up. Nobody in this room can say they've been hurt with real estate. Nobody. So AD Makepeace had the land, had the builders, and the prices went up, so they built, and so did Rich Whittington with the townhouses and the twin homes. He continued to, am I done?
I'm going to ask you to wrap up.
Well, that's where I'm coming from. I think I made it clear enough. You all understand where I'm coming from. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the room who wishes to be heard?
Good evening. My name is Lori Downs. I live in Red Brook. I want to thank Mr. Bulletin and Dan for acknowledging my thoughts that I wrote to you about the playground location. I want to specifically, well, it's already on the plan and it wasn't what I wrote to you. But what was important to me and my neighbors who have children that I spoke to was that it not be placed in the tavern lot, which apparently it's not going to be, and that it not be divided up, which now apparently it's not going to be divided up, and that it be interspersed among the woodlands behind the mail house amongst the trees for a natural aesthetic that preserves as many trees as possible. because I never like trees cleared. I am going to add, though, looking at that diagram, I don't know if that's a permanent plan, but I do feel too many trees were already removed from that image. I would like the idea of the trees that are around the perimeter right now to remain. It would act sort of as a natural fence, and certainly a good thickness of trees behind, between the neighborhood and the playground to help muffle the noise that these neighbors spoke of. And I understand what Dan is saying about fall zones, but if possible, save as many trees and landscape as you can. So I've spoken to some families that use the playground, and they like this idea of the woodland playground, particularly because it's shaded. They've been complaining for years that their playground is not shaded, so this solves that problem. It allows the adults to be able to just sit back and relax with a cup of coffee while they let their little ones play nearby, and the older ones to go off and run and play. And they do not like the placement next to the tavern, mainly because of traffic concerns, and the location doesn't feel safe for them. So I'm just making that statement in case the plan changes back. Next to the tavern just is not desired. So this plan keeps the beautifully landscaped tavern lot intact, and that tavern area does have some parking interspersed. I hope that we can leave that alone. I think it looks nice the way it is, and there is parking in there. Some things I didn't mention in my communication with you. There's a music sound piece in the playground, and my daughter loved those when she was little, but they're very disruptive, very loud. And next to the patio where people are trying to relax is probably not the best placement for that particular piece. So I don't know if another place could be found so that children can still enjoy it but not disrupt the people that are trying to relax. And it does look like there's more pieces than might fit in that area. So maybe consult with families to decide if any pieces have to not be there, what's a priority to be there. And then speaking with a mother who has a little one due on Wednesday, and she has two other older girls, 7 and 9, it's important to keep the pieces together so that she can keep a close eye on her soon-to-be toddler playing while her other girls can play. And she had this vision of, you'd have to look at it, but on the patio near the shed area, there's a large green area, flat green area. And her vision was having the little tiny car pieces, the bouncy car pieces, and the little child house pieces right there. So she could have her coffee, and her little ones are right next to her, so she can keep a close eye on them. And then that leaves room for the inside area for the bigger kids. And
I have to ask you to wrap up.
okay. And then the trees around the edge would act as a natural fence. Yeah. And thank you for listening.
Thank you. Anyone else in the room wishing to be heard on Use Area 17?
Hi, I'm Diane Chellis. My husband and I live at 3 White Spruce Lane, right across from the Rise and Grind and the access to the Y, and leading up to the proposed playground area, presumably. I don't have a clear picture of exactly where the playground's going to land, but I just wanted to add that, of course, we knew when we moved in that area, the little marketplace, was going to be developed. And now we have, the tennis courts and the pickleball courts. And the playground, I would love to see the playground move to a nice, accessible, shaded area. However, my concern, of course, is the traffic flow in and out of that parking lot area, which goes, right across the street from my house. And the other thing I have found out recently is you all know about the YMCA expansion, and I understand that's not your purview, but it does impact this project. And I understand that there's going to be a field house built in that back parking lot area as well. So it sounds like a lot of expansion in that one little spot in the very near future. And that wasn't part of the proposed plan. And I just wanted to call that to your attention and those who may not be aware that there'll be a field house, there'll be an expanded daycare center, and a playground, I think, there at the YMCA. So all of that does impact Red Brook and the people who access those areas. So just putting it out there for consideration. So thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Ruth Ann Ray Hall, and I live at 1 Olive Street. I'm directly across from the property in question. And I have to say that my biggest concern for the Red Brook community is the future of what we need is a place, a more commercial space on that piece of property, that square of property where they want to put the housing. Once that housing's built, there is no more land, well, unless they start to take away some of our other amenities, for us to put a general store, hairdresser, or, some other small type businesses. And I think that would be a shame because if this should have been in the plan for the original village. And I don't think that they really care about us as a community. They care about selling their land and building the houses. And in that spot, I know that you've looked at parking, and I know it's going to be an issue. And the last meeting 2 weeks ago, it was stated that in Pine Hills, they put that big place right on their green. But what did they do with their parking? They put it underneath. And I think that if everything comes down to we have no choice, but that is going to have to be a housing unit that they put in on Wareham Road, that they have to put the parking underneath. And don't those people that are going in there deserve protection from the weather with their own private parking underneath the building? Because I think what they're trying to do is take away what 80 Meekpace always says they're all about, is green space and trying to save trees and trying to have areas where the community can gather in a setting appropriate for what Red Brook and the community is, which is not in a city, but in a rural area with trees and parks and sidewalks and places, the walkability, because that's what brings us all together. And right now on my street, I see people walking in the street all the time because they didn't plan a sidewalk for safety from one area all the way to the YMCA. And I look right now across the street and they've got that one parking area that they have on the plan comes out onto Greenside Way. Well, I think it should come out. I think the parking should be accessible only from River Runway and Wareham Road and keep the traffic out of the neighborhoods. because there's enough traffic within our neighborhoods. We don't need to add more cars in and out.
Going to have to ask you to wrap up, please.
Thank you. I really want that shared community space, which Dan mentioned, to be maintained in that square where the tavern is now, where the garden is, where the memorial garden is. I would love to see the playground stay there because I love all the noise of the children, but I understand that might not happen. But I hope that you'll consider not putting in housing there for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the room wishing to be heard on use area 17?
Good evening, Keith Groveland, Birch Way. Please indulge me, my neighbors spoke tonight, and I do want to maybe spend the first minutes, might ask for a little extra time defending them. 10 and a half years ago, my wife and I signed a P&S at Red Brook. We were one of the first neighborhoods in Red Brook. This was the marketing material that was given to us at that time. Kept it, always looked at it, and one of the things that Elizabeth and Doug brought up tonight was where the current mail house and Rise and Grind is, and now the pickleball courts, and now playground, that was never part of the plan. That was supposed to be an athletic field that was part of the permit that they signed off on. So that athletic field does not exist in Red Brook. So I just want to defend my neighbors and say what they speak about is the truth. And unfortunately, 10 and a half years ago, this is what we were sold. And I feel bad for them because when the pickleball courts were going in, they were going to be the most affected by it because they're the closest residents to those pickleball courts. Okay, so I just wanted to support my neighbors. Just on this whole affordability thing, I'm not sure the board, I think everybody was here in 2024. Dan came in May of 2024 and gave what he called an affordable update planning board meeting. I think you all remember this. Hopefully you remember this. After the last meeting, I had to go find it because I couldn't remember what was stated at that meeting in 2024, just 2 short years ago. So if you go through this, and I'm not sure you guys still have this, but the use area 18 that Dan's looking to build in with Pontiff, he had projected 15 affordable homes, whether they're multifamily, whether they're whatever. All I'm saying is that when you look at this as a simple math problem, we've been looking at this affordability issue now for 7 years. Now, most of the board members here come on and off, so I'm not blaming anybody here tonight. All I'm trying to say, it's always been a simple math problem, and I have the numbers to prove that. So if you look back at how did we get to 113? The 5/20/24 update, Dan wasn't building a 19-unit apartment building in this whole presentation. Never was mentioned, okay? So that's what really got us upset when we started looking at this stuff. So that's only 2 years ago. The apartments, we have 288 apartments right now. We have 15 affordables. If we just use the 10% number, we should be closer to 30. In the original 2008 projection for housing, they had projected 39 affordables out of the apartment complex. Whitman, I'm just going to name the builders because people really don't know. They have 241 units that they've completed. They put 2 into affordable. They had promised at least 7. Pontiff has built 210 homes with all these approvals. Now, he's done 15. Applaud him because he's doing 12 multifamily and he donated 3 in the Cranberry Cove at $350 each as the deeded property. I applaud his efforts for that. Grantham's coming in with 62. That leaves the 19. We built a street called Waterview, Barefoot Cottages. Those homes were going for under $400,000. Not one was put into affordable. Stabile, 107 homes. Those are mostly condos. Not one was put into affordable. Valley, a builder that came in and built 159 homes. Not one was put into affordable. What's going to happen if you approve this tonight, that we're going to go from 20% of commercial units that was originally projected to over 30% of commercial units in Red Brook. Out of the 1,288, we're going to have 300 and, I think the number was 350, 379 or something like, or 380 units are going to be commercial units. So all I'm trying to say is that the board has never held ADM accountable for affordability. And I really think that's what people need to understand tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the room wishing to be heard on use area 17? Yes. Well, I'm going to go to online. Do we have anyone online who wishes to be heard?
If anyone's online, please raise your real or virtual hand and we will unmute you. Looks like Kay McMillan, if you could unmute yourself.
Good evening, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Good evening, members of the board and neighbors. My name is Chris McMillan, and I live in Deer Pond Ridge in Red Brook. I'd like to start with a statement and then end with a brief question. In 2021, my family purchased a lot here in Red Brook. One of the primary reasons we chose this community was its inspiring vision, a promise that every single neighborhood would include affordable housing options. We were proud to invest in a community that valued inclusivity. We imagined families who needed a helping hand moving into 2 or 3 bedroom homes. We pictured children playing in private yards, families hosting birthday parties and barbecues, and parents enjoying quiet, peaceful summer nights under a clear, starry sky. Unfortunately, that beautiful promise to working-class families has been dismantled. Because most builders claimed it was too expensive, those family lots were handed back to the retail market. Now, the new proposal completely flips the script. Instead of family homes integrated into quiet neighborhoods, we are looking at one-bedroom affordable apartments in a very congested area. Let's be entirely honest about what this change means. One-bedroom units are completely unsuitable for families with children. Furthermore, the proposed location strips away any semblance of the peaceful Red Brook lifestyle. These residents will not have a private yard or a quiet outdoor space. Instead, they will face constant traffic, bright street lights, and noise pollution at all hours. They won't even be able to open their bedroom windows on a summer night to listen to the crickets and peepers. The original vision promised families a piece of the quiet, natural beauty of Red Brook. The current plan traps them in an island of noise and light pollution. It is a profound shame that the promise of affordable family homes will not come to pass. But if the nature of the housing must change, the quality of life for these residents should not be entirely discarded. The very least we can do as a community is build these high-density units in a less busy, less noisy, and less light-polluted area of Red Brook. I urge this board to reject the current site placement. Please hold the developers accountable to the spirit of Red Brook's master plan. Let's find a location that offers these residents the dignity, peace, and quiet nights that were originally promised. And now I also have a brief question. I also want to ask about the new parking layout required for these apartments. I noticed on the diagram presented at the last meeting that the spaces that are currently in front of the community garden were highlighted in yellow. Will these parking locations be solely for the use of apartment tenants going forth, or will us gardeners still be able to use them during the summer months to tend to our garden plots, while transporting large heavy bags of essentials such as soil, mulch, and plants? This is why we need to be able to park close to the community garden. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Do we have anybody else online who wishes to be heard? Anyone else?
I don't see anyone.
That's the from the prior. Flying hands. Okay, fine. So let's move on to use area 18 now.
do you have to switch or do you have them in one PDF? What's that? Thank you. I'll save the good evening part. Save us. I'm now going to present use area 18, which is a residential subdivision. As a brief summary to our prior meeting, we're here before the board to seek approval for use area 18. And as previously approved master plan and special permit. The project remains consistent with the approved master plan, the Trevor bylaw, and the requirements of the use area plan review. Use area 18 is located in the residential area of Red Brook and proposes 54 single-family homes, which are an allowed use. The permitted density range is 1 to 4 units per acre, and their proposal remains well within that range, is slightly less than 2 units per acre. Following the board's discussion regarding the buffer area, we evaluated opportunities to increase separation from the adjacent properties. As a result, we have adjusted the lot configuration to provide an increased buffer. To allow for this improvement, we are requesting a waiver of the rear yard setback from 25 feet to 15 feet. That just enabled us to move the property line, which again just limits all overall disturbance in general. Excuse me, this adjustment allows the homes to shift while preserving the overall plan intent and providing a wider buffer. And I have some imagery to go into regarding the buffer. Again, just brief, proposed neighborhood, 54 market rate units, homes ranging approximately between 1,800 to 2,300 square feet, 2 to 4 bedrooms, depending on the home style. Homes are going to be constructed by E.J. Pontiff, previously built a few other use areas within Red Brook, currently building use area 14. For the special permit, 54 transfer development rights from Frogfoot East Sending Area will be utilized. The land associated with these TDRs have been placed under conservation restriction already. The use of the TDRs require 5 affordable units, which will be constructed as part of use area 17 as previously discussed. This exhibit illustrates the proposed conditions of use area 18, just as a summary. This includes the roadway layout, roadway network, called out some drainage areas, landscaping, the sewer pump station as well. The design continues the established Red Brook development pattern while preserving existing vegetation and where practicable, and fitting with the surrounding topography. The plan includes the necessary infrastructure, including drainage facilities and sewer pump station. All the blue labels that you see, these are discharge points for stormwater. And then this red label here, I'm sorry, I thought you would be able to read this a little bit better from here, but that's where a proposed sewer pump station would go. That sewer pump station collects the sewer, pumps up to a high point in the road, and then discharges ultimately to a sewer line in use area 14. So this exhibit here, for anyone that may be in the room that lives adjacent to Wareham Road, just south of use area 14 and 18 entrance, these lots here. This exhibit illustrates the proposed conditions as it relates to those homes. Excuse me. Sorry. So this is trying to highlight the separation between the homes. This plan maintains a buffer of approximately the minimum buffer from this gentleman on the corner right here. This minimum buffer there is 60 feet between property lines, not structures. That's just important to note because the structures aren't placed in either scenario all the way up to the property line. And as you move further south this way, that buffer quickly becomes well north of 100, north of 150 feet. I did have a few residents from last week, 2 weeks ago rather, that after the meeting shared contact. I sent them both plans showing the exact buffers there. Not sure if they're here tonight, doesn't look like it, but I haven't heard back from them. The gentleman on the corner and his wife, I've worked with them in the past. I don't see them here this evening. I did reach out as well. But similar conditions that we have, if, it's always tough when you try to define a buffer. How big is a buffer? Well, I've seen buffers that are 200 feet but don't have any trees. I've seen buffers that have 50 feet that have 700 trees. So you guys know me, if there's, when we go to do lot construction, if there's clear visibility and it's just an eyesore, like they know to reach out. We have the conversation if we can do anything as far as adding trees in that buffer on the land that we own to help maintain that, or visually wise, we will. This next one is further south. This is where it does get a little tighter. This is existing Squirrel Road. Sandy Beach Road is actually down this way further, and then it kind of comes up at an angle, and that's Squirrel Road. So the closest buffer we are right now, with even the setback, is right here on that pinch point corner. That's 30 feet. This quickly becomes 50 to 60 to 70 to north of 100, and then gets wider as you come this way. And it gets a little bit shallower here, but still about 100 feet plus in this corner. What I want to try to explain the best that I can from a topography standpoint, there's an existing ridge line that follows literally the back of these lots. What we tried to do here with this road to follow the topography, one, there's an existing low-lying depression that we're using for stormwater. So we kept this road not on the bottom, not at the top, but a little bit closer to the ridge than the bottom. But what that allows these homes to do is instead of building them up to fit in there, we're putting them into the land. Meaning, and the best way I can explain this is you have the road grade here, and the homes will get built into the lot, and the lot will subtly raise up to the ridge line and then come down. And the back of the homes on Squirrel Road are actually in that. The one area that the ridge line actually comes to the same elevation is right in the middle. You got about a 55-foot buffer in there, plus or minus. But again, too, any folks that are either here this evening or as we continue construction, share contacts. Sometimes you'll have a ridge that's beautiful and it's full, and then others it will be bare, and we don't want bare. So I think everyone knows in the past that I'm willing to work with those excuse me, with those neighbors and residents. If there's any questions.
Okay, at this point, I'm going to open up public comment on use area 18. Ms. Downs.
Is there something?
Yeah, can you get it to the, I think it's the second slide that showed the, that one.
Yeah.
It's-
There's a pointer here.
Hi, I'm Lori Downs. I'm a Red Brook resident. So I'm looking at that. I mentioned this to Dan privately, but I want to bring it out to everybody. Wondering if there's any way to cut like a pathway through those woods from the White Island area so that the people that live in White Island might be able to get they complain that they have no walkability. And there's no sidewalks at Wareham Road. But you see where the outspur is coming toward? I don't know if it's possible to like cut a path through there, like a woodland path, so that folks in that South Wareham area could walk through there, up the round, and then maybe like walk into Red Brook. That's all.
Great, thank you. Yes, please come forward.
Douglas Lovell, 9 River Birch Way. Thank you, Steve, and everybody for being here. So this addresses use area 18. It's the year 2026, and there are 54 houses, yet still no affordable housing. Just shove it into the apartment building on Market Square. I don't know how many times Keith has said that in his presentation, but you would think over the years we might be able to have affordable housing be part of the neighborhood, be part of the peacefulness, the green, the crickets, the peepers, and all that, instead of making a more congested area. It just keeps going and going, and it's going to keep going and going. And it's really, it's really interesting to see that the dream being sold versus the dream being built, the actuality of the build, totally incongruent. That's all.
Thank you. Anyone else want to be? Please come up.
Ruth Ann Rahal, 1 Olive Street. I'm just looking at this for the first time, and again, are there any sidewalks planned in this community, or is this another community where we want families and everybody's just going to be in the street? I think that's the same over in the Stabile community. I'm not sure about Valley so much, I don't remember, but it seems to be what you do rather than make it more accessible for families and safety of our community.
Thank you. Yes.
Herb Chalice, 3 White Spruce Lane. I have a question. In this development that's going to be processed, can the Conservation Commission go in there and approve any tree cutting? No clear cuts. They did that to Cranberry Cove. They cut every tree down because it's easier for them. They could plot each individual house and then have the Conservation Commission come in and say, yeah, you can take this tree down, no, you can't take that one down, et cetera, et cetera. Because they turn it from a beautiful forest into a wasteland for, what, 15 years until the trees grow back. Just a suggestion.
Thank you. Anyone else in the room? Okay, seeing no one. Oh, Keith?
Keith Groveland, 4 River Birchway. First of all, I'd like to thank the board for all the years of taking public comment. I appreciate the time and effort you guys have put in. This is not a slight on the current board, it's just a slight on the process of the last 7 to 10 years, because board members change. Our planning director that's been here forever is gone. So it's nothing to do with the current board, but it's all about consistency and it's all about compliance. So my whole point tonight is vision versus reality. And when Dan spoke 2 weeks ago, he said, you know, we never really broke promises, or we didn't, you know, we delivered everything we should as a community. And I just want to go back and quickly point out some of the highlights over the last 10 years since I've lived there that I think they've broken promises. First of all, the broken promise about the athletic field that's behind Elizabeth and Doug's house. I'm sorry, but that's always been a core in my throat about that athletic field not being saved. And then putting the mail house there. The mail house could have been put in many different locations versus that location. Second of all, ADM realized back in 2021 that commercial property would never sell at Red Brook based on our demographics. Michael Hogan and I sat down in 2021. He designed the whole marketing plan to go out and try to recruit commercial development. They realized then there was never going to be commercial development. The reason why Dan wants to throw those apartments in there is because he realizes he's never going to have a first floor commercial with apartments on the top. It ain't going to happen at Red Brook. So what's happened is he's been basically putting this stuff off, and forcing it upon the board based on this permit to say, I'm going to take this spot and take these 19, and the heck with everybody at Red Brook and the heck with the board, because that's the way I'm going to play this game. And that's the way it is. So I just look at it from the whole point of view is, it's, you know, in March of 2021, we had an annual meeting. We had a community house all picked out on Garden Road. We had a spot, we had it already plotted. I used to be on the advisory board back then. We had discussions about this. We had a 63% yes rate on building a community center. What happened in 2022? Michael left, new regime took over, and they basically said, oh, we can't afford it, nobody wants it. It's just these broken promises that as a residents, that we bought in a vision that became Red Brook's, ADM's reality. So I just want to go over that and just basically say, well, the last thing is, I know that, you know, Dan says there's no other spots for this apartment. Well, it's funny how back in the summer of 2023, Dan wanted to put 100 new apartments in off of River Run. And Jesus, that's where Grantham's going right now. And look at this down here. Another spot for apartments. And look at this over here. This is where they're building the 12 multifamily. So please, don't buy the story that this is the only place that they can put this stuff. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else in the room wishing to be heard on use area 18?
Diane Chellis, 3 White Spruce. And I just, you know, as we close the meeting, get ready to end this, I just want to go back and talk about the playground for a minute and ask that the board consider the fact that the YMCA is also going to be adding a playground in that rear parking lot in a very close proximity to the proposed new playground. They're literally going to be across the parking lot from each other, the way I understand it. And I think that the board should consider, you know, conversations with the Y to find out exactly what their plan is for their playground before we move ahead with plans for a big new playground area in virtually the same spot. And could they not combine and work together on one nice big playground? Or do we have to have 2 separate playground areas? Doesn't seem to make sense. So please consider that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else in the room? Seeing no one, let's go to people online.
I believe Ms. Carras, excuse me, raised her hand first, so I'll unmute her if you'd like.
All right, thank you. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you very much. Thank you for all your time and your consideration. I stand by the letter that I sent, an attachment to the planning board. Couple things as to Keith Gravelin's comment about broken promises. I echo that sentiment. And it's not just promises that were made by a developer or necessarily a realtor. We're talking about promises that were actually made in the special permit itself. So if you go back and scrutinize that, you'll see some of those things, such as a clubhouse that wasn't provided, such as the field. Turning to use area 18 in particular, it's just amazing to see the work that's been done by this developer to create buffers and ridge lines and have this peaceful, serene environment, yet with affordable housing in use area 17, there's no consideration of open space and buffers. It's jam it in, cram it in because it's the cheapest option available in the most dense area of Red Brook. So I don't know if everyone on the planning board has gone down to look at a site visit. I encourage you to do so. This is the densest area of Red Brook, 280 apartments, 62 units right across the street with the Grantham project, 241 units with the Whitman development. And now you're going to add further density, take away trees, and just add to density, cramming it in. This board can absolutely consider the promise of open space that was made in the special permit to buffer different areas. And there's still, I mean, I also want to know what efforts have been made to incorporate housing, affordable housing in use area 18. Turning to ADM's statement about why this location, it's disingenuous. Fulfills the original Red Brook vision, that's incorrect. There was never a plan to have affordable housing in this site. The affordable housing was supposed to be dispersed. Consistent with the TRVD planning principles, that's a spin too. It was the housing contemplated in this area was supposed to be above commercial. Place residents where housing belongs. Well, then why have use area 18? Do people not deserve who live in affordable housing to live in use area 18? Promotes integration, not separation. It actually promotes density, and in an area where there's already income disparities. Uses existing infrastructure responsibilities. Use Area 18 will have upon road access, utilities, and same access to services. So said another way, as to use Area 17 and the affordable housing proposed at that site, it is just the cheapest way out. And really, I hope this planning board thinks long and hard before adding to the problem of economic disparity and housing. We have an opportunity now to see that doesn't continue to happen going forward. So I hope you take advantage of it.
Thank you. Next person.
Mr. Howe?
Can you hear me?
Mr. Howe, we're getting a lot of feedback.
Is that working?
Mr. Howe, now we can't hear you. I'm sorry.
Do you hear me now?
As soon as you turn up the volume, unfortunately, we're getting that feedback.
Can you hear me now?
Do you have another appliance on, or are you using a headset? Sometimes that can create feedback.
No, I'm sorry, I'm not. I don't know why we're getting feedback. I've never done this Zoom.
Well,
I don't know if I should mute or something. I'm not sure.
well, if you mute, we won't be able to hear you at all. So, so we can hear you now. Just keep that at that volume, and we'll do our best to hear you, and we'll let you know if we can't hear you.
No, and I apologize. I apologize for that. So, first of all, I can't believe that the graphic that I saw at the beginning of this session that said there was going to be, I think, 53 homes in Area 18 to accomplish the 19 affordables. They were going to be put down 2 miles away in the center of Red Brook. And so I have one question. When did the heart of Red Brook become an apartment complex? Right in the middle of our own downtown, you want to put an apartment building. It makes no sense unless you are ADM and you want to finish the job the cheapest way possible. This building will only benefit 19 people. It will not benefit the rest of Red Brook. This space could be used for amenities for all of Red Brook, not just 19. The footprint of the future development building was the size of the mail house, and I doubt that early planners of Red Brook envisioned any more than a one-story building. You could put in a hair salon, a bank with real people in it, and maybe even a small subsidized grocery store. We have over 1,200 families here to support these businesses, and there is a lot of people outside of Red Brook, north and south, that would come here to also support these businesses. The bottom line is that building is not what Red Brook is. Not in that space. There are other sites located, and just because this 10% agreement was never kept, they wanted a quick and easy solution. I urge the members of the planning board to request ADM to look for another more appropriate site before the final decision is made. Thank you for your time. Also, one last note, I still don't see parking spaces for the restaurant employees on that plan that Dan had shown. They need at least 20 spaces just for the employees. So I thank you for your time. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Rachel Dunbar?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, thank you very much. I apologize in advance if my statement is a little out of whack. I keep hearing what people are saying and changing and adding to my proposal. But I want you to think about something. I want you to close your eyes. And oh, I apologize. I didn't tell you where I was from. I am from 11 Sandy Beach Road. in Plymouth, just outside of Red Brook. So I want you to imagine yourself driving down a dirt road that was never supposed to be paved. Bass as big as you can imagine, huckleberry picking, and a promise broken by A.D. Makepeace. I was at that meeting over a decade ago, more than that, and was told that Red Brook would never impact life on White Island Pond. And we stand here today, or sit here today, and listen today of how that has been a broken promise. I've heard a lot about broken promises. I do want to address the man, I apologize, I don't know your name. As a person coming from Zoom, it was very difficult to see the plans that you were talking about, especially since there was no pointer on our end. So when you discuss the impact on Sandy Beach Road and Squirrel Run, I have no idea what you're talking about. So I'm not sure if we can circle back to that or if it's a way to get a copy of that. I'm concerned about my property, including well water and water quality of the pond. My cottage is over 100 years old and still standing. I have photos of a beach in front of my cottage. Now there's no beach there. In fact, the water level has drastically changed since the incorporation of the increased housing, also known as Red Brook. I also have a large concern about environmental impacts. Environmental impacts in Turtle Cove. Turtle Cove is where the bogs are, over by where Red Brook's accessed kayaks. In the presentation shows a photo of a dock, which I would like to make noted. Those turtles are endangered species. There's impact on bald eagles, turtles, and swans. In fact, the White Island Pond logo are swans. I have noticed over the time of my life being at White Island Pond with the incorporation of Red Brook that the gate is not always closed. And there's often vehicular traffic and people allowing to be put boats in the waters, which was never supposed to be allowed. Also, I want you to think about Wareham Road, and I'll think about emergencies. Makepeace says they're donating to the fire department, but my question is, how is that going to be funded? I know that in the town that I live in year-round, that is a huge thing. We have a firehouse right down the street from me that is unmanned, that was donated, but is unmanned because there's no money to pay the fire department people to man it. Years ago, my grandmother's swing was burnt down, including our outhouse, which is how we got indoor plumbing. But that just shows you how close and scary fire can be in that area. I also want to say that let's talk about inclusion and segregation. Let's put affordable one-bedroom homes in the spotlight, saying, look at me, no one wanted us here. I can't help to think that people there are struggling are an afterthought. That has been burning my mind for months now. Hearing that Makepeace did not follow through and has been negotiating about this affordable housing. Could you imagine being at a place where no one wants you there?
I'm going to have to ask you to wrap up, please.
Residents talk about their thoughts about the apartment areas or the homes being built in their marketplace. And I'm going to say that the marketplace has been a nice place to go, especially if you need something to eat. The tavern's been wonderful. And a general store would be also great to have in the community. Have you ever needed ice before? I have, and have had to go to 7-Eleven and pay through my nose. I think it would be great to be able to go to a local store and give them my money and not 7-Eleven Corporation.
I need you to wrap up. Please wrap up.
Let's keep White Island Pond safe and appropriate for all living things, humans, creatures, and their environment. I thank you for your time and consideration and allowing me to speak tonight.
Thank you. We have one more person on.
Tony C.
Mr. Lydon, we have one person on Zoom first, and then I'll get to you. Good evening.
Hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, thank you. My name's Toby Carrots. I live in the Woodlands in Red Brook. And I have a practical question. As I look at many of the developments in Red Brook, like Cranberry Cove and the new preserve on the Agawam, they have more than one entrance to those developments. The Woodlands and now Area 18 have only one entrance into those developments, and I'm concerned that if those roads get blocked in any way, fallen trees, etc., it could be a problem for emergency vehicles. Originally, I think Area 18 was going to be connected to a development behind Deer Pond. There would have been access via Garden Road, but now there's only the one access to this new area. So are emergency access areas going to be developed for both Area 18 and the woodlands? That's all I have to ask.
Thank you very much. Anyone else on Zoom? Okay, we'll come back to the room. Mr. Lydon?
Steve Lyden, Precinct 17. I live right down the road from Red Brook. I'm confused about this athletic field. I thought Red Brook built an athletic field behind the South Elementary School. And so I don't know whether it's supposed to be two. I don't know. That's my question. And the other statement that I have is, I remember that the coffee shop used to have a small general store, milk and whatever, and he stopped selling it. He had to throw the stuff away because it was getting spoiled in the store because he couldn't sell everything that he had in there. So I don't know how a general store would work there when that gentleman there, he couldn't make it, selling his milk and bread and things that people needed. So I don't understand how commercial would go in there. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing this, no one, this time I'll entertain a motion to close public comment.
Motion to close the public comment.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor? Okay, it's unanimous. So at this point, public comment is closed. We appreciate your input, your questions, and now we're going to do our deliberations, including taking your questions and bringing them back to the applicant. But please understand again, this is our time for us to do our job here and to work this through. So please respect that. Mr. Gorsica, if you'd. So we can start with either use area 17 or 18, the questions, whichever you want to go through first.
Yeah, so I don't want this to sound like I'm being a wise guy. There was some new stuff, but most of the things that were talked tonight, number one, weren't questions, were comments. And two, I covered most of them 2 weeks ago. With that said, if we want to revisit any of them, I would ask the board, it's under your discretion. I'm more than welcome to visit some of them. The few things that, just because I have 18 right in front of me, a gentleman made the comment about the Conservation Commission coming out about tree removal. We're outside of all jurisdiction from Conservation Commission. I understand the comment, I do, about cutting trees and about just mass cutting. Yes, it is easier, but two, you have to think when a building is 50 feet wide and the lot is 70 feet wide, you can't maintain many trees. And I will say, and I've said this before too, a lot of times even when we try to save trees, we just have just as many residents when they move in saying that tree's too close to my house, can I cut it down? I understand it's discouraging, but we can't forget the whole entire intent of Red Brook. The intent of Red Brook was to have high density in a very small development footprint and then save 2,200 acres. That's what the intent was. The comment about a trail and a path, I love trails and I love paths, so I have no issues trying to figure out how we can make that connection work. I do know there is town-owned land over there, and there's land that we owned, and there's private landowners. So I have no issues walking out there trying to figure out how to do that. I think that's a great idea. Because to Lori's point, I think it was Lori who brought it up, there is no sidewalk on this town road here, but we have a sidewalk connecting to here. So I think it would be a great idea if we could somehow connect this side of the world through some type of trail. So more than welcome to work. I can't do it without either private properties help or the town's help, because I don't own any land that I'm aware of. The company does not own any land that goes to like the public roads or the paper streets or what have you. But more than welcome to help on that and to talk to people about that. The comment about emergencies and safety and fire safety, I totally get it. One of the things the company and the town recognized back in the day was you're gonna do a sizable development like this with the history of forest fires on gravel roads, you need water and you need fire protection. And so I know this doesn't help the people off Sandy Beach and Squirrel Road right now, but again, as I said 2 weeks ago, more than welcome to have this conversation further. All of Red Brook has water in the streets, and then there's fire hydrants everywhere as far as fire protection goes. She's right. I mean, if something would have happened, if something would happen on Wareham Road on the southern side and a tree falls down, it would have to be moved to get this way, or you're coming in from Wareham. But I have to say too, that happens in a lot of places in town. We can't forget too that this is in a rural section of town. So we're in the residential area of Red Brook. So you have the village mixed use area, you have the village area. Those are meant for higher density, meant for multifamily. As you grow further south, it is meant to become more traditional rural, just like Squirrel Road, Wareham Road, and Sandy Beach. But again, as far as public safety in general, more than happy to have any further conversations with the town. There was, hold on a second. From a White Island Pond perspective, it is important to note that pond, from what I understand from previous predecessors of mine, and just recently speaking with White Island Pond Association folks, that pond's never been in a better shape than it is today for water clarity purposes and uses. From what I understand, the Cranberry World, they did a whole bunch of stuff preceding my time to help with that water quality. It's also important to note we don't have septic systems here. So all wastewater is collected, pumped, and treated at a wastewater facility that is privately owned to the northwest of the site, and that's heavily treated, and then it's put back into the ground. And again, too, we have a public water supply system, so it's always important for Red Brook on both ends of the utilities. We have to be aware of water quality, because if we just I don't know what the right word is, but if we just ignored water quality and weren't aware of it, then we could be impacting the public water source supply for our own community members as well. So we take that stuff really seriously. But again, that's why people had the foresight back in the day. You need private water, you need private sewer. We couldn't have 1,288 septic systems. As far as the buffers, that I would ask that lady, I forget her name, sorry, I'm gonna forget. 12, I think it was Sandy Beach Road. I might be getting the address wrong. Just to please reach out. If you can't reach out to me, or if you don't have my information, feel free to reach out to the town. I'm just telling the town, more than welcome to give them my email, and we can be in touch with them. I remember on use area 18, if there was any other comments or questions that I didn't touch on.
I believe the question was about sidewalks within.
Oh, so yeah, sidewalks, thank you. So again, to my point about when you've moved further south, becoming more rural, this is in our permit and in the Trevor bylaw, this is considered a residential street. Residential streets are not required to have sidewalks, so therefore we did not propose a sidewalk.
Hey, I'm sorry. Again, we made it very clear that is not acceptable. We don't shout over people. We don't interrupt the proceedings. You had your opportunity to speak. Please do not interrupt anyone else. Please. No, I'm sorry. Public comment is closed. We follow that proceeding, otherwise it becomes completely untenable. No, you don't. Thank you. Okay. Let me bring it back to the board then for any questions that they may have. Start with you, Mr. Mand.
Oh, thank you.
Well, I know you're prepared, so.
Well, I want to say, first of all, that over the past few years, I've been very impressed with the participation of the Red Brook residents. I think it's partially due that you're new to the town and you have expectations. You have visions that you were either sold straightforward or you feel have not been followed through on, but nevertheless, you set a good example for the rest of the community. I wish more communities would turn out for these kinds of sessions and voice their concerns, many of which are very persuasive, I would say. I do have questions specifically for Mr. Gorsica and
relative to the development. It also kind of harkens to the beginning of the meeting where Mr. Bolton, the chairman, remarked about how we have a preset set of rules, parameters, that what they refer to colloquially as the TRIVID, which is similar to Pine Hills Osmond. It's a special, I don't, the term for it on its own, but it's essentially special zoning and special regulations that are meant specifically to address a very large development like this, and then go forward, and I find that to be problematic. Mr. Bolton raises the issue, the legal issue that we can't change that, but that's a problem. If we had a 1950s development of tract homes, and we thought that was the ideal, it would not stand up this day and age, and I think this is a fast-changing world, and even a development as new as Red Brook is now in some ways becoming outdated or becoming problematic, and the system doesn't allow for change. But what I do hope it allows for is some manner of flexibility or of interpretation. And some of my questions specifically are related to how that is enacted from an environmental perspective. That's oftentimes a focus of mine. So I wanted to, first of all, apologize that I forgot my reading glasses, so I'm going to be looking down and squinting at my notes here. But first of all, I did mention the comprehensive plan and how one of the drawbacks to all encompassing permits, given developments like the Pine Hills and Red Brook, is that they are frozen in time. The regulations, policy, and the like that are written into their enabling legislations when they were first envisioned don't change and are often, for a variety of understandable reasons, they're hesitant to adapt to changing attitudes or realities. In this case, I'm interested, though, in finding some way that this development and others in town can accommodate themselves to our new comprehensive plan. A lot of time and money went into producing that, and I'd like to see, in however possible, Red Brook and any other development find way to respond to those positively, those goals and ideals that we have set as a community. So now I have some specific questions about some of the environmental issues. One of the first is that your arguments for the sufficiency of the drainage calculations includes the notions of things like 100-year storms. We have found out in the last 10 to 20 years that 100-year storms or 500-year storms are no longer reliable, that we live in an age, I will use the phrase climate change, where what we have more often is unpredictability. So I'm a little concerned that when we cite things like 100-year storms in the calculations that say our drainage and things are going to be effective no longer can be relied on in that fashion. So in some fashion, I'd like that addressed. Excuse me for squinting again. Given that Red Brook was born out of a promise to preserve priority habitat and species, and in fact is not just bordered by, but is building within that habitat, it seems fitting that the design of the residential and commercial developments therein should be especially considerate of that habitat and species-rich environment. So I'm not assuming that there is in the plan for ensuring the free movement of water and wildlife in this area, but I have never seen that specifically addressed. We have had some exchanges, Mr. Gorsuch and I, about that. I would really like to see it addressed, how specifically those things are being addressed. I note that I sent a list of questions. I said that already. So can you specifically address the issues of wildlife and habitat corridors and how you're ensuring they are not significantly degraded by this development? I'll just go on with a few questions so you don't have to address them one at a time. One of the more effective and appealing green development techniques utilized by Red Brook is the reliance on existing natural depressions for drainage and groundwater recharge. But that approach also can be limited in the long term by a lack of consistent maintenance of those same systems. So one of the things I'd like to know So among the material provided by this review is a list of scheduled maintenance items that should be undertaken in order to assure these systems function as well in year 10 as they did in year 1. For example, Red Brook is now an established community with many of its phases having been occupied for a decade or so. So do you have maintenance records that indicate the proper maintenance has taken place in these older phases? Looking over some of the technical materials provided in the presentation on phase 18, I note the long-term control pollution prevention plan and operation and maintenance plan. And as I read through that plan, I noted that most, if not all of those prescriptions, those maintenance things were, those protections were required. They weren't, I mean, that is, they were only encouraged, not required. And there's a whole series of things like vehicle washing, which is considered to be one of the ways that a lot of pollutants can get into the system and get into the groundwater. Landscape maintenance, which often wastewater, integrated pest management, illicit discharges and things like that. I'd really like to know if there's any way to verify that these things are being adhered to in some way, and that also leads to whether or not there's water monitoring going on, water quality testing in the groundwater and the ponds and streams in the area to make sure that this very important habitat, this priority habitat that this whole development was based on, is truly being protected in ways beyond that which we normally even look at home development, because this is a special area. I've sent you a lot of other questions, and considering I'm having trouble reading my own printing here, I'll let it go with that.
Sure.
Thank you.
So I'm going to keep this specifically focused to use Area 18. And I'm not going to go, these are good questions, most of which, or a lot of them, are already addressed during the entire special permit process itself. But let me speak specifically to why we're here tonight. From a stormwater perspective, I'm going to be honest with you. I 100% agree with you. The storm levels now, they're all over the place. But from an engineering standpoint and technical standpoint, that's the data that's required to use. So it's used. I will say how we protect that, or how we at least look at that, because I'll be honest with everyone in this room, catch basins do not take in a 100-year storm. They aren't designed for it. They aren't meant to do it. It doesn't happen, right? So what do we do is when we have existing low points where they are, we know where the relief points are. So when they clog and they bubble up, or if they freeze, like in a winter condition, and you get 30 inches of snow, yeah, you're going to get ponding in the road. That's going to happen. But we have relief points, meaning that we're not going to flood your basement. We're not going to flood your driveway. It's just going to be overland relief. So yeah, we're taking advantage of existing depressions and for recharge, but we're also be aware of where we're putting those catch basins and looking at, okay, if this pond's 3 or 4 inches and it's clogged or it's frozen, where does the water go? And I think that's what people have to really start looking at is sizing a basin for 300-year storm, go for it. The water's not going to get there. Most of it's going to be overland relief, and it's going to go to other locations. So I would just say from a planning perspective, I would think long-term with those, because I know a lot of times, even some of the comments that are made on stormwater is they want things bigger at the end result, right? Where all the water goes, they want it bigger. But I would challenge people to think about, does that water actually go there? From a maintenance standpoint, we hire a third party who inspects all of our stormwater. And then when levels are required, I forget how many inches, it specifies. The first line of defense is a deep sump-hooded catch basin. What that means is you have an outlet pipe, but below it, 4 feet of voided space to collect sediment. So they inspect those. I want to say it's like 4 or 6 inches. I just forget. So they inspect those annually, and then we get a Lister report that says, okay, these need to be cleaned. They go bring out the Truax. They sit there and they pump it out, similar to what you guys have probably seen in the town of Plymouth. So that's the first line of defense from maintenance standpoint. Then you also have water quality units. Those are opened, again, inspected for sediment. They also contain floatables, so they don't get in the pipes. And you suck those out. And then the outfalls themselves are periodically inspected. Ironically, a lot of them end up growing into nature, growing into the woods. And so then every now and then you'll see some scouring or some erosion, because that's just, it is what it is, and then you just go address it. But we do that on a yearly basis, and actually the association, that's a huge proponent when we turn the association over, please do it. You guys have probably seen or heard on news stories, when you don't maintain stormwater systems, sewer systems, from a street perspective, bad things can happen. So we do that on a regular basis. The wildlife perspective here on our end, again, we have, to Frank's point, to your point, Frank, we develop in, some of the areas we develop in are in priority habitat. We knew that going into it. That's why we have a comprehensive management plan with natural heritage and endangered species. We have permits with them that are amended from time to time. Everything that's in that permit we're following. As far as in this specific location, I mean, you have, oops, sorry. I mean, you have a wetland resource area over here, and there's a vernal pool over there as well. They have direct access to Deer Pond going this way. I mean, I guess in theory, wildlife could walk through this woods over here to get over to the bogs and other development, but we try to keep those kind of interstitials. But as far as I understand, everything from an environmental standpoint, we're following.
Thank you, Mr. Mand. Mr. Bennett.
Thank you, Mr. Bolton. Dan, I've got a couple of technical questions for you. Starting with, I know that the Plymouth Planning Board regulations stipulate maximum dead-end street length of 500 feet. Can you explain to me how that is not the case here?
Yeah, so I will say too, remember that your fire department reviews this, and they found no issues with the plan. But from what I understand, the only one technical dead-end street is here. That can't be maximum of 5 feet. A street like this has multiple connection points. I understand what you're saying as far as this road goes here, but again, I rely on what I think is to be true, what our engineers think to be true, and then the fire department reviewing it, and they didn't have any issues with the plan.
I understand, and I understand that our engineer, town engineer, have reviewed it.
Yep.
I'm just seeking to understand for myself whether it's part of the Trivet zoning.
I don't even know if it's just Trevor or if it might even be in your standard subdivision regulations too.
Mr. Chair, I'm happy to answer that question.
Please.
So yes, the regular subdivision regulations do allow waivers of certain requirements, and then the Trivet special permit specifically calls out the allowance of different waivers and just flexible allowances in terms of some of the traditional subdivision requirements.
Okay, I did see some of that in the zoning regs, but not specifically under the Trivet. But I did see OSMUDs allow for 1,000-foot dead-end street, but in just that first segment, and having dealt with this issue in other towns in my career, the entrance road, they'd require a double barrel. I don't think that's anything any of us want in this case. So the other question I have, and this is a fairly technical one, is that if I look at the typical cross-section for the streets, it shows a 40-foot way on, I'm sorry, Amber Sky, on the main entrance road, the first, Amber Sky Lane. And Dan, I think I may have you, if you have the subdivision plans there, so it's sheet. The grading plan for that is sheet C 6.1. But first, I'd like you to go to the construction details sheet, which shows the typical cross-section for the roadway. I'm scrolling my way there. There it is. So sheet C 9.1.
I have 9.4. All right, sorry, continue.
It's okay, yeah, regardless. So what this shows is the roadway cross-section, the crown of the road, if you will, is a grade of 1/4 inch per foot. It's about 2%. And then a Cape Cod berm at 12 inches, and then a grass strip. It says 4-foot minimum, and it says 1/4 inch per foot. So that's the slope of that 4-foot shoulder of the road. This section shows it on both sides. So if you go back to the grading plan of 7.1, the grading doesn't reflect that. It's showing the proposed grade lines dropping off at what I suspect is a 3-to-1, possibly a 4-to-1 slope right off the back of the Cape Cod berm.
Okay, I see what you're saying. To be honest, yeah, I mean, I can go back to our engineers and just have them revise it. If it's not, I'll be honest, I'm looking at a half scale 11 by 17. So it's kind of hard for me to see the shoulder
Yeah, I
grading.
have the advantage of being able to zoom in on it on the PDF.
Yeah, on the
here.
spaces where there's no homes. Yeah, we frankly, what ends up happening, you need a shoulder because that's where we have our gas and electric, but I can have those plans updated to reflect.
I think it's just a question for your engineer to take
Yeah,
a look at
thank you.
how they graded that. Because as it is, you don't want a 3-to-1 slope dropping off the back of your
It's not good
berm.
for the pavement, never mind anything else.
Yeah. Yep. Those are really my only questions at this point, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. Mr. Donaldson.
Hey, Dan, thanks for coming tonight. So I want to ask you if you, what is the current plan or status going on with commercial space, or what's the market showing right now in regards to adding commercial space, or is there a plan for commercial space?
Listen, at the end of the day, the people that we get interested in commercial want us to build the building and rent it to them for free. And so it's just, yeah, I would love to see more commercial down there. From a retail shop perspective, I would. If anyone has it, you want to invest, let me know. It's just becoming very difficult. It's always been very difficult. A lot of it, I know the perception of it is, well, there's a lot of homes around. There are, but you have to remember too, it's not the easiest access. We're not off the highway. We're just not getting the level of interest. The interest we have, somebody from like a Long Pond Physical Therapy or a medical office like Beth Israel, they're pulling from a huge radius and demographic. So yeah, I would love the mom and pop shops. We would. We tried it with Richard. To his credit, he invested, he tried. As somebody said before, he ended up throwing away more than he was selling. And, you know, the comments are made like about the 7-Eleven and the pricing, and I hate to say this, but you think a bag of ice is expensive at 7-Eleven, it's going to be twice the cost at a store like this. And no one's going to want to hear me say this, but you want it, you need 1,000 more doors. You need more units to sustain some of these things. And that's the problem we've run into.
So my next question is in regards to the density in regards to in the area that they want to do your proposal for area 17. So it's to my understanding, if these units are not there, then they would have to be built somewhere else, will cause more infrastructure issues as well as more clearing of trees and things like that if we try to put it in another location. Is that correct?
Yes, specifically with the multifamily. You can't, in a residential area or by permit, you can't put multifamily. So if you're looking at dispersing it and doing it differently, you would have to just do a different model. I can't put in that level of density in the residential area. Yeah, I mean, I get all the people's comments, I really do. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised when that building is built and occupied and done. And I will say to the person that made the comment about, oh, they're gonna think that they weren't wanted, so we just put them in one place. I'm just gonna say this, the only people that are thinking that is you guys. The people that will ultimately live in there, they don't know what you're saying. It's how you invite them in, it's how you interact after the fact. So no one's gonna move into the place and think, oh, they didn't want me here. You know what they're gonna think? They're gonna think, wow, I'm right next to a restaurant. I'm right next to a gathering space. I'm right next to a community garden, and there's a green and a YMCA right there. That's what they're going to be thinking about. They're not going to be thinking about, I can't park my car, there's too much traffic, and we weren't welcomed here. They're just not.
That's all I have. Thanks, Dan. Appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Donaldson. Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You answered the question I had about the retail. Could you address the discussion that came from the comments regarding distributed affordability?
Sure. So in the inclusionary bylaw, it uses the word disperse. When you read the MOU, read our permit, remember Red Brook is a one big project. It's in Red Brook. So so yeah, do we have more in one area than others? Yes, but it's still within Red Brook. It's dispersed inside of Red Brook. That's where they live. So we have we'll ultimately have 17 ownerships. I will have to say, and I know I don't know everything about this town, but I would challenge to find another development of some scale that has 17 homeownership affordables. The rest of them, yeah, are rentals, but the disbursement of it, we have some in townhomes. Yes, most of it's concentrated. But when you look at what the permit says and what the inclusionary bylaw says, we even had the option to come back to you and say, we don't want to do it. We'll just give you land. That's one of the options that is clear, not only in your bylaw, but in the MOU. I could have said and other developers, I could do payments. Here you go, here's the money, we'll give it to the Affordable Housing Trust. Hopefully they can do is what they can do. We could have done that, we didn't. We put it in Red Brook. That's what we're doing.
Okay, thank you. Next question is, I do appreciate you're going to the 15-foot rear yards to reduce the amount of area that's disturbed. So I think that's a real positive. And then the parking by the use area 17, for the apartment owner, the people who'll be leasing the apartments, are you going to designate spots for them so that they'll be available to them whenever they come in?
I fully suspect we'll have to not to get too into it, but when you're financing a building like that, and when it comes to financing, they're going to want to see that. So it's 19 units times 1.3. I forget exactly what it was off the top of my head, 25, 26 of them. So out of those 76, so we'll have to designate those. And then the rest will just be, as it is today, shared parking. When I say designate, just realize that's assuming there's that many cars there as well. So we'll have to handle that with signage. We'll leave Sunflower Way, definitely not signed for anyone particular. Same with Wareham Road, the parking lot. The new parking lot, that's not going to be reserved. It's just going to really be the cluster that's closest to that building.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Mr. Grandy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a question. Are we voting both of these combined at once, or are we voting one at a time?
We have made it clear that we don't vote to approve market rate without also voting to approve affordable. And we can't mandate affordable without the market rate. So they will be voted together.
As combined?
As combined.
Just want that to be clear to everybody in the room, to include the members of the planning board and
Yes.
myself. Okay. The original permit was approved back in 2008, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And I'd like to name a couple of the planning board members who happened to be on the planning board at that particular time while this was going on. Mark Garrett. If anybody remembers that name and that person, he's big environmentally. He's a wetland scientist, I believe. So he was involved in the process of going through the tribute and everything that was involved in it. Another name everybody should remember is Malcolm McGregor, the man who walked every trail probably in this town. Okay, so he was involved with the tribute, going through the designs, ensuring that within this development, 1,800 acres minimally would be conserved to protect the environment, to protect the frogs and the peepers and every other animal that lives in there and want to go through that process. At this time, I was an alternate on the planning board, so I really didn't vote to approve this or not, but I was an alternate at the time. So through this and the densities that are involved throughout this whole process saves a lot of land. This was what the plan was. Like I said last time, I don't really want to get into it because all of my questions have been answered and the other board members have already asked the questions that I would have asked already. So this meets the requirements of the Trevid permit from 2008. So we are limited in our decisions as an elected board through the state of Massachusetts laws
in the bylaws, which include the Trevid, that we can do. So, I appreciate all the comments here this evening. We take that into consideration. And I believe Makepeace has made some amendments here and there, and I hope they would continue to do that. You asked for more parking so that the restaurant wouldn't go out of business at our last 2 weeks ago meeting, which they've increased the parking. They're moving the playground, and I would hope it would stay the same, not be diminished in size. But it's a good comment that people made to talk with the YMCA and see if we can combine something there to make one combined for both. I'm not sure if that can be done through the lease that the YMCA has there or not, if they own the building. I don't know. That's something that the Makepeace people can work with them on. So everything is important here, including the environment, what you people expected when you first moved in. I'm sorry that a real estate broker may have told you something. They went through this with the Pine Hills. People would come in and say the same thing. The broker said there were not going to be any more houses over there. Well, the Trevid and the areas within the permits allow them to do this. Higher densities to protect more land and space. That's something that I want to do. The higher density, so they're not destroying the entire area. If you look in that area and do that as a common development, I don't know how many homes could have been built in that particular area, but it would have taken up all the 1,800 acres of open space that we have now in protection, with another 300 or 400 to come. So maybe a total of 2,200 acres of conserved land through the process of this development. Yes, they made promises. I don't know what promises they were. I wasn't standing there when somebody made you a promise. I know what the Trevid decision was, and this meets that requirement. And until the Trevid would be changed, which would take an act going through, I believe, the state town meeting processes with the planning board to try to change anything within that, it would take years for that to happen. So I trust in Mark Garrett, Malcolm McGregor, and I believe Larry Rosenblum also was on the planning board at that time as a member. I learned a lot from those three gentlemen. I learn a lot every day. I learned a lot tonight from you people, which I appreciate you coming in here this evening and discussing it. With that, again, I'm getting long-winded. And thank you very much for coming this evening. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Grandy. So most of my questions have also been covered, but I do have one or two more. First, again, I know this is something we addressed last time, but I want to reiterate. I'd like to see that we make sure that there is sidewalk connectivity throughout the village green and going through. We have people who have pointed out that there are gaps.
Yeah, sorry, I should have responded to that one, just so you guys know. I walked that exact area, so now we're just formalizing a game plan. But yeah, there's a shortage. It's just, I'd like to just call it oversight, I guess.
Then we have parking. Now, I know people are very concerned about the restaurant in there. As one person was good enough to mention last time, I've been seen there a number of times. It's a place that I do enjoy going as well, and I want to make sure that it remains successful. So I appreciate the additional parking that you've identified, but you've also identified another potential additional parking area adjacent to that. Another, you said 8 to 10.
You could expand it. Yep.
Okay. What I'd like to do is condition any vote tonight on use area 17 to say that 6 months after completion, we would revisit the parking to make sure that it is adequate. And if it's, obviously, if it's adequate, I don't want to make any changes because I don't want to cut down more trees for parking. But if it is not adequate, if we find that when residents have moved in and that we agree that that area will be made into additional parking.
Okay.
Okay. And with that, that is the remainder of my questions for you. Anything else from the board? Anything else from staff? Okay, so again, we're going to vote on these jointly. So at this time, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve jointly, subject to the conditions that we've talked about.
Including your last comment.
Including my last comment.
6 months after, correct?
Yes.
I will second that.
Okay. Discussion. Okay, I have a few points. I apologize, but I want to make sure that the residents know how much time we've spent listening and taking seriously your comments and your concerns and the level of research that this board has done in trying to address your concerns, because they are very, very important to us. I've gone through the permit dozens of times, gone through the MOUs. I've gone through 3 different levels of bylaw. I looked at our 2008, 2012, and our current bylaw. And I've tried to make sure that I looked at those with the comments that we received, both here in the room and the emails and the people who have called me asking questions. And I want to make sure that I try and answer those questions when people have asked them. Because people have come to this general understanding, there's belief that we as a planning board have the right to turn around and say, we don't like something, therefore we're going to reject it. And we don't. There are many times I wish we did, but we don't. We're subject to the town bylaws and the terms of the permits. And in fact, the permit, as was mentioned by staff, actually supersedes our bylaws. It is a special permit. It's just as if someone had gone to the ZBA and asked for an exception to our bylaw. That's what the special permit does. And I agree with Mr. Mand that we probably, when doing these things, should be making sure we're capping time or having review periods after a certain period of time, that they don't go on forever and ever. Because things do change, and we are powerless at times to address those changes. And I feel badly about that in a number of instances. One of those instances is in the affordable housing realm. There were assertions that were made, and I understand that people were told, well, the Village Green was never intended to have this kind of density. Actually, when I looked at the MOUs, what I saw was a plan initially to put in an assisted living facility with more units than both the Grantham and this combined. So there was always an intention to put well over 100 units, in addition to the apartments, over 100 units of affordable, although only 50 could be counted as affordable per the MOU. But there was supposed to be lots and lots of density in the Village Green. So I was always concerned about that when looking at what else goes in there. But that doesn't mean that the planning board hasn't been sensitive to the issue of where affordables go. As Mr. Gravelin mentioned earlier, at one point, there was a proposal that came to us. We'd like to add an additional 100 units, another apartment building. And this board, against Red Brook's desires, said, no, we're not going to entertain that. You want to come and reopen the permit? That's your right, but we're not going to entertain that as a minor modification. And that never happened because this board, a number of this current board, said no. We've heard about the commercial space, and I understand that. And I live in the Pine Hills, and I understand. And I've watched a ton of turnover in the Pine Hills. There are 4 times as many people in the Pine Hills as there are in Red Brook. And we're directly off of Route 3. We still have commercial turnover. It's a challenge. And to Mr. Gorsica's point, I don't shop daily at the market because it's ridiculously priced. And that market was subsidized for a decade by the developer. For 10 years, the developer lost money on that market because they knew they ultimately needed a market for their business model. So I appreciate your desire to have something, and I appreciate the challenges of people who try and do it, because it's very difficult to be successful. Now, I also, again, respect the people who say that, gee, this Village Green was never intended to have all of these multifamily homes in there. And that's not something that was allowed, contemplated by the permit. So again, as I said, I delved into that permit in a great deal of detail. Permit expressly says, by the way, that the town cannot dictate the type of housing built anywhere in Red Brook. Red Brook could have literally been all apartments. Didn't have to have a single for sale home. That was its right per the permit. Do I think it's a good idea? No. But that was something that was allowed. Anything, however, can be done. It can be rental, single family, multifamily, whatever the developer chooses. It's section 6A of the permit. As for dispersing housing, affordable housing, yes, it has been dispersed. And yes, it has been concentrated. It's not as much as I would like. Look, this board has not let it just simply sit in the Village Green. The most recent use area before this has affordable housing built in. The 12 units, the 12 duplexes, that was actually my personal insistence, but this board fully joined in, where we said we wanted more for ownership affordable housing. But at the same time, we also have looked at the failure of single-family affordable housing in Red Brook. And what we found as we looked at that is, why did this fail? Because of the rising costs of LOA fees, the maintenance fees, utilities, taxes, and insurance make your homes unaffordable for people who meet affordable requirements. They can afford to buy, they can't afford to maintain. That's a real problem, because the ultimate circumstance that happens then is they leave, and who's going to be stuck with those? Your association. Your association will end up foreclosing on somebody who can't pay their fees. You'll own those properties, and you won't be able to sell them because of the problem. We don't want that to happen. We want Red Brook to be successful throughout. And that's why we understand that success in the current economy means affordables are multifamily. That's just what it means. It's just the economic reality. It's not something that I like. And Mr. Gorsica knows that I have complained to him on multiple occasions about my desire to see affordable housing elsewhere within Red Brook. But I also am very sensitive to what Mr. Mann said, which is we don't want to keep cutting down more trees either to build more houses. We want to limit that. This particular site, when we look at the permit requirements say that we as a board, when considering a use area, especially an affordable use area, there are certain things that we are supposed to give favor to. We're supposed to give favor to sites that require a minimum of disturbance. This site's already been cleared, so it meets that requirement. Any other site would require tree removal. We're required to favor areas which have infrastructure, because if you build somewhere else, you also have to run the piping and the lines, and that means more clearing and more disruption. We're required to favor sites that require minimum topography changes. We don't want a lot of earth removal. This site does that. And as the Trivid, we're required to favor increased density to preserve undisturbed land. That's the purpose of this entire bylaw. And that's what this site does. So as we look at this particular site for use area 17, would I prefer something else? Yes. Did I propose something else in the past? Yes. Do I understand, however, why this site makes sense? Yes. It's a balancing act. And so I want everyone to understand that we have looked at this. We have tried to balance. And I understand some people are not going to be happy with that. I get that. But when I look at the permit and I look at the bylaws, we actually as a board would have only one other option to make everybody happy. That would be to eliminate the affordables. We could do that. Residents, you wouldn't have to have another apartment building in the Village Green. Make peace. They wouldn't have to give up the land. They wouldn't have to lose money on that. That'd be great. Sure, no problem. Everybody's happy, except the town. The town needs those 19 affordable units. The residents need those units, and the town needs those units towards our subsidized housing index so that we can continue to work to try and avoid hostile 40B developments. So unfortunately, getting rid of those is not something that I'm willing to consider. I think that that would be a derogation of my duties to the entire town. And I understand again that that means that some people are not going to be happy. And there's never been a decision that this board has made where everybody's happy. That's an unfortunate part of sitting up here and trying to do what we can, but we are trying to make the best development we can within the parameters that we have. And that's the reason that I think we're going to take the vote that we're going to take tonight. Thank you all. Anyone else? Motion's made and seconded. I'll call for a vote. All in favor? It is unanimous, including the associate members' vote.
Thank you, everyone.
Do we have any other business tonight?
Motion to adjourn.
I have a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? This meeting of the planning board is adjourned. Thank you all.